What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we're going to be having a little bit of a look at a new Vault tool which has just been announced for Keyforge, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to give ourselves a little bit of a reminder all about different formats in which we can play, and also run through the different Vault tools which are coming up. I will pop little timestamps in the descriptions if you want to flick to a particular section. Well, feel free to do so, ladies and gentlemen. Feel free to do so. But let's start off by having a look at the latest announced Vault tour. It is happening in Nuremberg in Germany, and it is starting on the 19th of July and finishing on the 21st of July. Now, there is a Facebook group set up for this, or event. I will try and remember to pop a link to that one in the description for this. But they've popped it up and they've given us a whole bunch of information, including how we can actually go about getting tickets. Although, to be clear, tickets are not actually on sale until the 19th of April. So you're going to have to wait just a couple more days if you want to go ahead and get yourselves tickets for that. So the main event will cost €35 to enter, which is not the cheapest, but honestly, that's about what you pay for tournaments nowadays, unfortunately. This does give you entry to all the main and side events, but obviously not any sealed events. Very simply because sealed events, well, you get decks. You get like free decks. It would not be economically viable to charge you €35 and give you about that much worth of decks in addition to all of the tournament entry. Ladies and gentlemen, that would make no sense. On Friday, you're just getting side events starting from 10 AM. Side event schedule is not out. So the good news is, if you are traveling to this Vault tour, you don't have to be there on the Friday. Obviously, you should be there on the Friday, but there's no main event stuff going on the Friday, so you're absolutely fine. And then Saturday and Sunday is where you have the main event. Although obviously Sunday you're going to need to qualify for. You don't do well enough on Saturday, you ain't playing in the main event on Sunday, though there will of course be side events. Registration will open at 8 AM on Saturday and close at 9:30 AM sharp. Be there on time, but because registration is on Saturday, you really don't have to be there Friday. Obviously, if you're traveling to the event, it's worth getting there on Friday, entering the side events, especially given that your payment for entry includes side events as well, but it means that you don't have to be there on the Friday. That's pretty nice. Now, the format for this one is very interesting. It is the survival format, which some of you may well remember was the format that was used in Schaumburg, Illinois. And in this tournament, you take your 3 best decks. You can enter this tournament with 1 deck and win the whole thing with exactly 1 deck. That's a little bit awkward. Now, the good news is the lovely Alex Watkins from Fantasy Flight Games did give a really good explanation of survival. So if we run through that very quickly, you have 3 decks and you order them deck 1, deck 2, deck 3. And essentially, you play with 1 deck until you lose. If you don't lose, you do not change deck. So if you lose your first game, then you go to an 0-1 record and you go to deck 2. What could happen is you lose with deck 1, you lose with deck 2, you start off at 0-2, you then reel off probably 4 victories in a row, and you qualify for day 2 with a 4-2 record. And because it's a survival tournament, you've got to lose with all 3 of your decks to be eliminated. If you get 2 losses, you're still in the tournament. So to get through day 1, you need to have an X-2 record. You need to have lost 2 times or fewer by the time you run out of rounds on day 1. Any deck you lose with is gone, you can't use it for the rest of the tournament. And then you flick to your next deck, which does have to be set before you start the tournament. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because for day 2, you must use the deck that you would have used in the following round. Which means that if you go undefeated in day 1, then you just have that deck and you never use deck 2 or deck 3. But here's an interesting scenario. You get 4 wins straight away with your first deck, you're rocking and rolling. You got 4 wins, with this deck it's good. You then lose, so you're down at a 4-1 record, and you then, deck 1 is gone, and you have to move to deck 2. What if you don't really like deck 2? What happens if you're in a game with deck 2 and it's going well? Do you continue playing the game with deck 2, knowing that winning that game will force you to play deck 2 for the whole of day 2? Or do you concede or lose that game so that you can play with deck 3? These are the kind of strategic choices you have to make in a survival tournament, which I find extremely interesting. Whatever you do at the end of day 1, whatever deck you have at the end of day 1, you have for day 2. If you lose your final round, then either you're eliminated, or if that wasn't your final deck, you move to the next deck. You might end up having to play the whole of day 2 with deck 2 when you really want to be playing it with deck 3, which means you have to designate the right deck before the tournament starts, or you might be locked into day 2 with a deck that frankly you don't want to play with. Day 2 is much simpler. Single elimination. You lose, you're out. Simple as that. You go until there's a winner. Now, just in case you're wondering, here is a table of the Ember Shards you get for playing in a Vault Tour. When you rock up, you get elevated to a power level 3 deck, and you gain 30 Ember Shards. You then get 5 more Ember Shards for every round that you play, 10 more for every round that you win. If you make top 32, you get 50 Ember Shards, top 16, 75, top 8, 100, top 4, 150. If you make the final, you get 300. You win, you get 500. There is a huge jump from top 4 to final and final to winner. But you know, there are good prizes. Remember, the chair is 1,000 Ember Shards. We did a video about what you can buy with Ember Shards. I'll pop a link to that one in the description, though it does change according to tournament. I love the idea of the survival format, but it does mean you got to have 3 decks that you like, and it really will reward players who have done a lot of testing of a lot of decks to really figure out their 3 best. The alternatives are essentially sealed. This is what they did in Seattle, which is where you rock up to the tournament, you are given 3 decks, you choose one of them, and you play with that until the end of the tournament. That one deck is the only deck you'll use for the entirety of the tournament. Obviously, sealed tournaments do have an element of luck in that some people will just open better decks. But sealed also brings in an awful lot of skill in that players who are more familiar with the cards as a whole and players who have practiced their playing will inherently be better with a new deck than players that just are used to playing with a good deck, or that just get given a good deck. Players who are more skilled, more experienced, and more knowledgeable will do better in a sealed tournament, even with a slightly worse deck. And then there is just Archon, where you rock up with your best deck. This is what they did in Eindhoven, and you just play. You just rock up with your best deck, and you play with that one deck until the end of the tournament. Which format do I like best? Honestly, as a player, most of the time, I'd probably rather go sealed, but then again, that's an easy answer until you open 3 decks you don't like and have a terrible time. I love the idea of survival, but there is quite a lot of prep for that if you want to do well, and you got to pick the right 3 decks and order them correctly. And Archon is just great as long as you take your best deck, which is weird because generally speaking, in most card games, you rock up with one deck and then you play it and that's it. I know it just sounded like I said I like all 3 formats. Sorry about that. But the first one I'm going to get a chance to play with is the Vault Tour in Birmingham, which is going to be both sealed and have Age of Ascension. And I am cool with this, ladies and gentlemen. I am cool with it. So let's finish off just having a quick look at the other Vault Tours that you can go and have a play with. We have got Vault Tours coming up shortly, within, well, end of April and end of May, in both Denver and Atlanta over in the US. I'm not 100% sure on the formats for those. If you do know, pop it down in the comment section, please. And then the week after Atlanta, we've got the UK Games Expo in Birmingham. That's what I'm going to be at. If you're there, please do come and say hello. And that is going to be sealed, and it's going to be Age of Ascension sealed. We've then got the middle of June in Origins in Columbus, Ohio, which is also going to be a sealed tournament. You give 3 decks, you pick one. That's what you use to play the event. I do not believe they have confirmed whether that will involve Age of Ascension. If you ask me to guess, I'd imagine it would because it's, 2 weeks after Birmingham, which did. We've then got one coming up in Italy, June the 21st to the 23rd, which, if I am remembering correctly, and I believe I am because I'm looking at it right now, that is going to be Archon Solo. That is, like in Eindhoven, you pick a deck, you rock up, you play. We've then got the one in Germany in the middle of July that we've already talked about. We've then got one in Gen Con at the beginning of August, and Krakow, Poland at the end of August, which we know is actually going to be, it's kind of like their European Championships, so to speak. It's going to be a big event with essentially all of their games, which sounds like an awful lot of fun. Can't promise I'm going to be in Poland at the end of August, but I can tell you I'm going to try. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Chat about formats, chat about the Vault Tours, and of course, a nice chat all about the Nuremberg Vault Tour. I hope you can all make it, and I hope if you can't, it was still fun to have a chat about it. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, tell me what you think about all of this in the comment section. Go nuts, but do remember the rules, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would you? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games like Keyforge, but also a bunch of others. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.